Okay. Now we're ready. So I would like to open this meeting, October 30th, 2023, regular council meeting, and acknowledge that we are here on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, and we are grateful for the grace and collaboration they offer us, and the opportunity to govern on their lands. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda with the on-table item, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Minutes, adoption of Committee of the Whole, October 16th, and regular council, October 16th.
Move the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. And receipt of committee minutes, Heritage Committee, October 19th.
Move receipt of committee minutes.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And delegations, Comox Valley Regional District, Track and Field Service. Is everybody coming? You're welcome to all come. Take turns. Sit, stand. Just make sure your mic's on so people can hear you in Zoom land. YouTube land, I guess. It's more appropriate. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us. So we're here today. I'm Trish Morgan. I'm the Assistant Senior Manager of Recreation Services for the CVRD. We have Doug Tomarzo, who's our General Manager of Community Services. And in the background, hiding back there, is Jake Martins, our General Manager of Corporate Services. So on September 26th, at a meeting of the Comox Valley Recreation Commission, the Commission resolved to send a letter to the Village of Cumberland to invite your community to join the CVRD Track and Fields Service. A copy of the letter and the staff report to the Commission is on your agenda, starting on page 17. So the Comox Valley Track and Field Service provides funding for the maintenance and capital costs of the all-weather track at Vanier and a variety of sports playing fields. The CVRD has a funding agreement with Comox Valley Schools for the operation and maintenance of the Vanier fields, track and artificial turf field, and the town of Comox for the operation and maintenance of the Highland field. Participants in this service are the City of Courtenay, Town of Comox, Vancouver Island portion of Electoral Area A, Electoral Area B, Lazo North, and Electoral Area C, Puntledge and Black Creek. So a little bit of background on Cumberland's participation on the service. The service was established by a supplementary letters patent back in 1980. Cumberland originally participated in the service until 2001. And then in July of 2001, the letters patent were replaced with conversion bylaw number 2353, and the service was amended from providing funding only for the all-weather track at Vanier to Comox Valley Sports, Track, and Fields. And so this broadened the scope, and this is what we have in place today. Cumberland at that time chose to leave the service. And then fast forward to 2008, the CVRD passed some motions to invite Cumberland to participate in the service again, as well as providing consideration to contribute to Kinfield upgrades. It appears that at that time, Cumberland declined to participate. So moving forward over the years, staff from the CVRD, the City of Courtenay, Town of Comox, and Comox Valley Schools worked together as a team on the development of the current artificial turf field and capital improvements to the Highland field. We've been very, very fortunate over the years to have Comox Valley Schools play a significant role and a really great partnership in providing land for many of the fields around the region. And then in 2022, the same team, along with staff from the Village of Cumberland, worked to complete a sports field strategy, and that was presented to the Comox Valley Recreation Commission earlier this spring. The sports field strategy consists of a number of recommendations, primarily focused around improving existing fields through improved amenities, like washrooms and lighting, and the construction of a new artificial turf field. The study also recommended inviting the Village of Cumberland to join the service in recognition of the many groups that are using the fields, with members from across the entire region. So proportionally, Cumberland's population accounts for about 6% of the entire CVRD, but as an example, about 10% of the youth who are registered with Comox Valley United Soccer are from Cumberland, and so there's about 100 there, and that's just one club. So then in the spring of 2023, the Recreation Commission adopted a new recreation strategic plan, which included the development of a new artificial turf field and then planning for playing field amenities, as well as exploring an additional ice service and in addition to the aquatic center to replace the sports center, which is nearing the end of its useful life. Right now, in terms of the artificial turf field, we're still in the design and costing phase, but that's actively being worked on right now. So the request from the Recreation Commission on September 26 was that Cumberland be invited to once again consider being a participant in the service. If council agrees, the village will be included in the service starting in 2025, as we've missed the annual deadline to add a participant to the service. But if council did agree to join the service and felt so inclined, you could consider a financial contribution based on what Cumberland's apportionment would be for 2024. In terms of financial costs, in 2023, the budget for the service was $328,000, which equated to a tax rate of 0.00708 per thousand of assessed value, or approximately $5.66 on an $800,000 home. Now, we are looking at developing a new artificial turf field, and so there will be an increase of approximately in the range of $32 on an average $800,000 home for about 5 years. And then after that, we anticipate the service going down to somewhere between the $5 to $7 range. So why should Cumberland consider participating in the service? Equitable funding of this regional infrastructure serves all residents of the Comox Valley, and Cumberland participates in other regional recreation services, and the track and field service is no different. Increased collaboration between all local governments and the Comox Valley schools to provide the best possible user experience and maximize efficiencies across the sport field system. For example, right now, staff across the region are looking to align field allocation policies and possibly booking practices in order to increase consistency and create a one-stop shop for all user groups. And that's the end of what we have for you now, but if you have any questions, we're happy to answer.
Thank you so much. Councillor Sullivan?
Hey, thanks for coming, you guys. I'm just wondering where the location of the new field is going to be.
So it's going to be on the top portion of the Vanier field closest to the school. So the rugby field will be moved down, but it'll also be able to be used for soccer as well. So.
Any other questions? Councillor Kettler?
Just maybe you could talk about how that discussion did take place about where the new field might go, and there were some different options put on the table.
Yeah, through the Recreation Commission, there was a number of options done through the field study. It looked at a few different sites, including, it was narrowed down to 3, which looked at the site near Isfield, the Billmore Fields in Courtenay, and then the Vanier site. One of the advantages of having it at the Vanier site, as you know, most of your students in this community go to Vanier, so they have that field use during the day for their senior years. Additionally, having a double field is a requirement often of tournament capacities. So if there's a tourism component or tournament capacity holding to get larger tournaments, you kind of need 2 artificial turf fields within close vicinity. And lastly, the school district was supportive of that location. It's currently a rugby field, which will be moved over to a better field, so it'll actually allow the rugby to be moved over on the grass, and that field had drainage problems, so it's a little bit of a low-end field, so we looked at that as another option, and then the Rec Commission decided that that was the option to advance through to a higher level of design, and then they'll be confirming that in the upcoming months, if that's it's pretty much the final location, but if the cost and everything works out, to go to construction.
Thank you. Councillor Therrien?
And hi, do we have an idea of the cost of the field?
We're in the Class D estimate phase, so it's pretty early on.
Yep.
What the Rec Commission looked at was the $5 million kind of mark, was what was presented early on. We've obviously seen cost escalation since that time in other fields that have been procured on the island, so we're working through those costs right now.
And then just the numbers that you quoted, then what you said that was the fee per household was going to go up by about $32
About $32.
for how many years? 5?
For 5 years.
For 5 years and that should cover that whole $5 million over that time period?
It's the hope, yeah. It's a
That's the hope.
short-term borrowing approach. There's other ways to approach it, but that was what we put in front of the rec commission, and we haven't had any other conversations with them around other borrowing strategies.
Yeah.
And then that's billed directly, that just shows up on the tax bill as a
Yeah.
line item, okay,
From the CVRD.
from the CVR.
CVRD.
Yes.
Okay,
Had,
go ahead.
Are there, what kind of long-term maintenance costs are associated with it, or are there in this particular case?
Sure. Through the mayor to Councillor Baraki. So they're actually quite low. I think off the top of my head, we're looking at around 20-ish thousand, 25,000 a year at most. Yeah, it might. Yeah, it all depends on if we do manage to get a washroom in there as well. The school district does a lot of the maintenance, and it's very affordable because of the partnership we have. So
Just because it requires a lot less mowing? What is it? Does it compare like with a regular turf field? Or turf field? I imagine.
Far less. So basically, they're supposed to rake them on a frequent basis. I don't know how much they rake them with a special machine, but it's mostly, the maintenance is mostly around litter pickup, any vandalism removal, which we'll try and design out of it so it's minimal. And then a little bit of, you don't even do snow removal or anything on the field, so it's just pretty standard. And then
Yeah.
if there's any wear and tear on the turf,
And
some patch-ups.
what's the life expectancy of those?
10 to 15 years for the surface, which is not including, your shock pad and all that stuff. So we're getting definitely more out of our current artificial turf field. It'll exceed the 10 years before we just have to replace the filaments.
Yeah.
So anywhere from 10 to 15. You see fields around that are like 20 years-ish, made with a different material, and they're still being used. They're not the best surfaces, but
Yeah.
the field hockey players like the older fields.
Thank you.
So there's an existing artificial turf field already? This would be a
Yes.
second, the other one's a smaller field or something? Where is that one?
So the other field is at Vanier as well, but it's below the sports center. So the Vanier High School. so below
right,
the
yeah.
pool and where the arenas are.
Yeah.
It was built a number of years ago, and it's not a smaller field per se. It's a rectangular soccer field. This new one might look at fielding more different user groups, which would be a slightly different shape. But we're moving through that process.
So I have some questions about the actual artificial turf. I understand that it is a source of microplastics in our water system, and that it gets very hot in hot weather, and that there are other sort of climate considerations. So is that decision made already? To have a turf, like the decision to have a turf field has already been made,
Yes.
is my question.
And then it's about mitigating those impacts that you're speaking to. The heat's not so much of a thing because it's like all associations have a certain temperature threshold where they have to be pulled, the youth anyway have to be pulled off the field. And given our
Right.
coastal climate, that's to be
What used to be
managed
our
by the
coastal
clubs.
climate.
Yeah, exactly. And then migration, there's a lot of migration type, well, not even new, but different approaches to stopping the migration, as well as different types of fill for that infill, which is what you might be referring to, the little bits of rubber. You may have heard about it down in Victoria.
Yeah.
So that's all being considered in the design, how to mitigate that and potential new solutions in the industry. We're not at that stage yet to determine exactly what that looks like, but we're aware of those issues.
Okay. And so, as I understand, Cumberland exited the service primarily because of the last go at having an artificial turf, likely because of that cost.
We're
I'm guessing. We're all guessing.
It's a bit of a paper trail dilemma.
Yeah.
So we're not sure.
Having no recorded YouTube.
But it went from
Meetings
just
to
being the track to a bunch of
All
fields.
the fields.
Yeah.
2 fields, and then it was originally meant to be at Isfield, and that's kind of when all those decisions, it's not very well tracked, and it ended up at Vanier for whatever reason.
I feel like it was a cost.
Yeah,
That
likely.
cost just got too much for the council of the day. That's all the questions I have.
Can I speak a little bit to like the greenhouse gas aspect? Because the conversation at the Recreation Commission, I think there was a feeling that we did want to support outdoor recreation and that this was a good way to do it. It provides a longer season on the field itself, so people can play more. There'll be lights out there, they can play longer, as opposed to some other indoor activities. And certainly for me, as opposed to like a new ice rink, which is, you know, maybe 3 times the cost and has all these other greenhouse gas implications for maintaining ice in a warming climate. So I think my concern around the cost is that we're already part of the Rec Commission and they're going toward ice rinks and new pools and all that stuff, which is going to be a significant cost. If we sign up for this, this is another cost. So that is what it is. I think that we, you know, need to think about that carefully and maybe talk with, you know, members of the Recreation Commission about, you know, our financial capacity and what we can participate in and what we can't participate in. But
Yeah.
I guess there is an option of voluntarily committing funds to this service I
Without
guess,
joining the service.
in a similar way that COMOX voluntarily commits funds to the homelessness support service, as a way to sort of mitigate our risk of all of these recreation expenses kind of skyrocketing.
Yeah, we've added a few services this year, so it is a going concern. Yeah, mostly my concern about the artificial turf is that, you know, they generally last for just over 10 years, and then where does all that go? It's going to a landfill, right? So, or is it, tell me it's recyclable? That would be nice to hear. Like, I don't
The
feel
ru-
good
yeah,
about that.
so the rubber may end up depending on the Tired Stewardship BC programs, may end up
Right,
as
that could
playground
be, yeah.
servicing or other pieces. The turf tends to get reused by other secondary type places, but I don't know, no, it wouldn't be reused as a field, it's definitely downgraded. That's a great question, and we'll continue to look at where that goes, and we can find that out for you and just send a follow-up email through.
That would be
CAO.
great. And the other field, the other artificial turf field is not old enough to know, to have that question yet. Or is it, will it be the same, is it the same material?
It's might be different material, but Nanaimo and Surrey have just done a large replacement, so we'll just be able to reach out to our colleagues there and ask them what they did
What's
for
better.
carrying the old materials, and we can get back to you.
Okay.
So just to clarify what Councillor Kettler was saying, is this service responsible also for the hockey rinks or would that,
No.
would funding for those fall under a different service model?
Yeah, it's a different service model. That's 621, so it's your rec function. This one's, I don't know, they're track and field
601.
service.
Okay.
601, yeah, separate, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a recommendation there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming and answering questions.
See?
It's on the bottom of the first page, yep.
Oh, there we go.
Second.
All in favor? Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, reports, heritage alteration.
You have the on-table item,
Oh, our on table is next.
correspondence.
Thank you. So people may have seen in the newspaper a letter that was distributed to all the local governments from the Comox First Nation about Action for Canada and their activities in the Comox Valley. They have asked local governments for our support in not supporting these types of organizations in our community. And so council would like to support the nation by writing them a letter of support to them. And also, I have a brief statement that I will find as soon as I can find it. Or not. One moment. No, I've got it. The Council of Cumberland supports the Comox First Nation in their stance against events that promote hate, division, and racism in our community. As we have stated in our strategic plan, Cumberland's values are founded on respect, inclusion, collaboration, and leadership. We value the unique history, culture, and traditions of the Indigenous peoples and are committed to reconciliation and building positive relationships with Indigenous communities. We do not support the acts or the words of Action for Canada. And now we're on to heritage. Oh, do we need a motion to write the letter? Would someone like to make a motion to write a letter of support to Comox First
So
Nation?
moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Heritage Alteration Permit 2723 Dunsmuir Avenue.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a report for approval of a heritage alteration permit at 2723 Dunsmuir Avenue, the King George Hotel. There is a typo in the recommendation line that has a bit of a hanging comment to the Heritage Committee. That shouldn't be there. The last report to Council recommended referral to the Heritage Committee. The HAP, Heritage Alteration Permit, is for the renovation of this historic building to create 7 hotel rooms and 2 commercial retail units in accordance with plans attached to the report. Since Council initially was presented this application, the Heritage Committee has reviewed it. The Heritage Committee recommended approval of the permit. The Heritage Committee also made a second recommendation that the village explore mechanisms for heritage protection in collaboration with the owner, including incentives for future use. So the second recommendation reflects an aim of ensuring long-term protection of heritage properties in the village and wasn't intended to be a condition of the permit. The Heritage Committee didn't recommend it that way. And just a little bit more information about that request. As the village has not adopted a heritage designation bylaw for the property, and the HAP is consistent with the guidelines, meaning there's no additional variances required for the development to proceed. There isn't authority to require a heritage revitalization agreement or a heritage conservation covenant in conjunction with this permit. However, this doesn't preclude the owner from voluntarily registering a covenant at any time, perhaps in the future, to ensure long-term protection. And staff would welcome working with the property owner on this. So the recommendation is for issuance of the permit.
Thank you. Questions? Go ahead.
Hi, Courtney.
Hi.
Thanks for the report. I was wondering about parking.
Yeah.
In the report, it said that the 2 downstairs spaces that are commercial have not yet have a designated use yet. So our policy is to allow for the lowest density, which results in the lowest requirement for parking. And then, so if somebody comes in and the use is different, and then it's kind of on that person and their business to try and come up with some parking after the fact, which then doesn't seem to make sense. So I was wondering, do you think that we should be shifting our policy to sort of have a middle of the road density and use of that, so that it's not the lowest in case whoever goes in there does need to increase parking?
Yeah, I do think we could look at that. It's, and we did actually in this, yes, I think we should look at that. It would be a bit of a project to understand best practices, which we don't immediately know what those are. In this particular case, we pursued with the applicant to actually request parking variance now in conjunction with their HAP for potential future parking spaces that would be required if those ground floor units were a restaurant. And it just turned out that wasn't feasible because it's not just based on square footage, which is known, it's also based on number of employees and number of tables. So we tried to go down that road with the information we had on this one, it just wasn't feasible. So it would be great to come up with an alternative.
Okay, thanks for that.
Anybody else? Yeah, I agree that we should look at that parking policy. But I also am happy to not worry about it for historic buildings that are being restored in some way. So, so we can do that later when we have time. My question though is about parking, but bicycle parking. So all the bicycle parking is in the back, but I assume, so I guess that's only for the hotel part. And the commercial piece, again, then when the commercial piece comes in, whatever that is, would add more out front, or how are we doing that?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we'd have to look at the requirements at the time because the class 2 could potentially be located on the side within the sidewalk on those bike racks, and then class 1 can still be at the rear.
Yeah,
It can be in addition to what's already there at the rear.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. There's a recommendation there?
Sure. The council approved the Heritage Alteration Permit 2023-02 HAP application for the property described Lot 9, Block 7, District Lot 21, Nelson District Plan, VIP 522, 2723 Dunsmuir Avenue.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Yeah, looking forward to seeing that work.
Yes,
Thank you.
indeed.
Thank you. Bevan Road paving. Come on up, Rob.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So, staff have been reviewing the idea of paving about 20% 1 kilometer section of the entire 5 kilometer section of Bevan Road. This road, Bevan Road, is it's now in the DCC project. So the entirety of the road from Cumberland Road to Lake Trails in DCC for the next 20 years for improvements as we see development occur in that area. And so it's rated as a high priority project in the roads DCCs. The challenge now is we're seeing development out there, so we're seeing quite an increase in the volume of traffic. The road is challenging at the best of days to keep in a kind of a holding pattern. You start throwing rain and snow at it, and it's near impossible in the wet season. And we have some logistical challenges with Tree Island now with their shipment of their product, so they're gravely concerned. We had looked initially at different mechanisms to fund this, and so sometimes you can use a developer works agreement or other funding agreements with developers. We reviewed this with our lawyer, and the lawyer basically said that it's a bit complicated. It's going to be time consuming to kind of work through it, and your best option is for the village to take over the project, manage it, and use DCC funds. And so within the, in the report there, you can see that the regional district is also contributing 300,000, and that we have some community works funds that we can throw at it to make the project a reality. The engineer that did the design, Weller Engineering did the design, and the project estimate, the cost estimating, there's about $221,000 in contingency as well. I'm not sure we'll use most of that, because the idea is to use the sub-base material that exists now, the in situ material. I think it's geotechnically suitable for a road sub-base, and so it's really building the road up, forming ditches, importing the base course material, and then paving it. So, of course, the biggest challenge now, this time of year, is can we get it paved in time? And so within the construction tender, we can include language that looks at options for optional work for either maintaining the road or some kind of surface treatment. And then, of course, within the tender, there's always the option to not proceed at this time, depending on what bid pricing comes back, what it looks like. So, yeah, I think there's. I noted some operational challenges. We've done a quick estimate. You know, we'll need to throw additional resources at the road this winter if we don't move forward with it, which is fine. I'm not sure we have that in our budget, but there'll be additional grading, probably weekly grading or more frequent, depending on the condition of the road. And we may have to throw some gravel at it as well, just to keep it passable. So, yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions council has.
Go for it, Councillor Sullivan.
From your language, sounds like you're doing this before the snow. Is that the idea?
That's the idea.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
It already snowed, just saying.
Yeah.
But it's not going to snow again now for a long time.
My understanding is the actual plant's open for a bit yet, right? I think last year they didn't close till December, so and you can pave in colder weather when you're paving your base course. So, you know, if we're lucky, we can get the first 50 mils of the road down, and then come back in the spring and pave the top 50 mils. So.
Just had a kind of an off-base question. You'd know this answer better than I do. What about going with a lower grade pavement like chip seal or something and doing the whole Bevan Road all the way out to Cool Lake? Which has been which has been brought up by a few folks that, you know, use the rod and gun in that regularly.
I'm just not sure chip seal will hold up to the amount of industrial traffic we're going to see.
Yeah,
That's
it's just
the
throwing
challenge.
good money after bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So once we pave it, then we'll have to do snow removal?
We do snow removal now because it's a fire route to that end of the fire service response area that's outside of our boundary. Like they respond to the Fish and Game Club and Bevan and other places out there. There's times of the year though where they actually have to go down to Marsden and around because the road's in such poor condition. It's very hard on the trucks.
It is in very bad condition right now.
Usually what happens is the chief or whoever's on duty, the duty officer will take that route, and they'll advise the fire trucks which route to take, depending on the road condition.
Do you know when Tree Island needs to start shipping out of there?
They're already in
Imminent.
production.
Okay. So I just want to say, okay, I got another question first. So this was not in the work plan?
No, not this soon.
Okay. So, but is it bumping the other paving that we're doing inside the village?
Well, so there's only a certain amount of projects that are in the roads DCCs. Most of the paving projects that might come up are not DCC projects. So I think there's Cumberland Road, there's portions of Royston Road, and they're within a 20-year time frame. And then there's, I think, Ulverston as well. So
I'm just
think if
worried
there's
that
any more.
this work.
What's that? Yeah, and we are using a portion of the community works funds. We're proposing that, yeah.
I'm just worried that this work is going to put off paving First Street and the other
Well, First Street's not it's not a DCC project.
But-
So we couldn't
But in
use,
terms of time and work, like if the village is taking over doing that paving job, are we not doing this paving job?
no, there's no impact on the local roads and utility work that's underway.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
this-
you, thank you. That is good news. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Terry.
So this is, the DCC funds are for a 20-year span?
They are.
Because this is basically going to empty the,
Yeah, it'll
the
leave you with
roads portion of it.
$100,000 in the reserves, yeah. But you will build it up quickly as development occurs out there, right? That's kind of the idea is, as you see development, we are collecting DCC funds now,
Okay.
so.
And that's, and it's just the 1 kilometer from where the pavement ends now out to the Tree Island plant, basically?
It is, to where
they've put there a little bit of
where they
pavement.
paved that frontage along Bevan Road at Chiano Phase 1, yeah.
Okay.
And is that cost estimate current, or was that done
It is
a while
current,
ago?
that,
It is
that's,
current.
the engineered estimate is current, yes.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions?
Just from the funds that we're taking from Community Works, are those funds, could they be applied to our wastewater treatment project? So we're kind of spending our emergency reserve for that project on this project?
I mean, in essence, those funds, and I don't know if there's any other funds available that we've identified for additional costs for the wastewater project. I don't know that we've had that conversation. I don't know if the financial officer can speak to that, but.
And is there any mechanism to replace those community works funds with DCC funds as they come in?
Yeah, are we allowed to do that?
Are we allowed to say that this is a loan to the DCC fund in essence?
That's a good question. I'll let Annie answer that.
Not Rob's expertise.
Well, from what we've looked into last week, I think we can only borrow from capital reserve to
Yeah,
supplement a capital reserve, so I don't think that's a possibility. And the thing is, we also have to spend those funds by, I believe, was it mid-2025, I believe? It's not a requirement, but it's recommended per se. In all the reporting we do to the province, to UBCM for the, former gas tax community work fund, it is recommended this. We spend the money sooner than later. So, and in terms of additional funding for the wastewater treatment plan, we haven't looked into that so much, but the linear asset reserve might be an option, because that's a capital reserve we
Yeah.
could probably use to supplement our funding for the project.
thank you. Roads are very expensive. So, any other questions?
The CBRD portion, so that's just what's in front of the landfill?
It doesn't represent what's in front of the landfill. It represents what we were able to come to an agreement with them over. If we were to, if we collected DCCs from them, it would probably we may never collect that amount that we've agreed to, for specific to the road portion of the DCC, so, yeah.
Because technically they'd only be responsible for half of the road on their side?
Well, it's not even that. I mean, technically, if they were developing the site new, yes, and it wasn't a DCC project, but because it's a DCC, the only mechanism we have is to collect DCCs at time of building permit. So,
Missed that.
so you need a lot of building permits over the years to.
And that wouldn't count for any future expansion of the landfill?
Well, it kind of captures it, right? I mean, I don't think they're gonna, you mean expansion as in their operation or expansion as in land?
Land, yeah.
I don't think it matters because the road's paved leading up to the landfill now, and then it's paved beyond it. So I don't know if it's really relevant, but
Well, no other businesses will be able to go in that area that the landfill currently is, so, yeah, and it's just,
yeah. So we're paving their frontage, across
Yeah.
their frontage all the way up to Achiano, so yeah.
Yeah. And they're giving us $300,000. Okay.
okay.
So there's a recommendation there.
I'll move the council approve staff to undertake paving of Bevan Road based on tender pricing being in line with the engineering estimates, and that council approve funding in the amount of $970,000 from the roads DCC reserves, $300,000 from the Comox Valley Regional District, and the remainder of the funding to come out of the Community Works Fund up to a maximum of $560,000. And the council authorized the chief administrative officer to execute the contract between the village and successful contractor should bid pricing be in line with the engineering estimates.
Seconder?
I don't know. This-
Yeah, I kind of feel like we need to have a discussion a little bit more about those community works funds.
That's kind of where I'm at now, this.
Can I ask another question? Well,
Sure.
the motion's on,
Yep.
like, what are maintenance costs annually to, or you'd see to keep grading and it in decent shape? Because we're gonna have to do that no matter what to maintain access out there.
The challenge with the existing road surface is it is just the in situ material, so it's basically pit run. So you have large rocks, which are very challenging to grade in a road, and so when I first came here, it wasn't even graded right. There was no maintenance really on that road, and so I think if you were to just keep it as a gravel road for a number of years, for the next few years, we'd have to look at some kind of base course material and some kind of road improvement so you could actually grade the material and keep it in a better holding pattern. We estimated, for the next 5 months, once a week going out there with a grader and adding some materials. I mean, you're 10 grand, so in a year you might be 20 or 30 grand kind of thing. But
So it's affecting their
It's-
product, the road?
what's that?
It's affecting the product?
It is, yeah.
It's bound.
It's jiggling it too much.
Yeah.
And so it has yeah.
It's
I don't
really
understand the science behind it, but yeah, it's not good to jiggle the finished product.
Those dust and things like that in the summer as well.
bad. They lose the cream top.
If you make a shiny road, there's gonna be a lineup for going up.
Yeah, there's that too.
I could
Yeah,
also
we'll
just
deal with
add
speeding issues.
the Community Works Funds. So the 10-year agreement ends in 2024. So our last payment was 2023, and there is the possibility of that being renewed. Like we've heard nothing, but we also haven't heard that it's not being renewed, and that's like about 200 and something thousand per year
Yeah.
as well.
And which level of government supplies it?
That's federal,
That's a federal
the gas tax.
gas tax.
That's another good reason to spend those funds sooner. Like we should have spent them already.
So
Like,
that we
we've
can
had
get
some
more.
challenges
Gotcha.
because of the linear assets being delayed.
All right.
So
I don't think we'll have a problem spending them. It's just where.
I do hear a bit of a sense of urgency around spending those so that we're spent out and ready to receive more. I think that's the concern.
I'll second it for now because we're gonna have to do this eventually at some point. So
Get cheaper.
and it's not gonna get cheaper, and if it encourages more development out there from the business community, it's probably in our best interest. And a shiny road out that way is probably the best way to go about that. There's also a been a safety issue around those areas too. I mean, you know, there have been incidents out there with the dust in the summertime and things like that. So if you add extra industrial traffic out there, it's not going to get better. So on that basis, I'll throw in a second.
Did you have something else, Councillor?
Is the second phase of the industrial park beyond this one?
Part of it's just prior and part of it is beyond it, but it's phased.
And then they would be responsible for paving their frontage, presumably, if it extends beyond this one?
No, they wouldn't, because it's now a DCC project. So initially it wasn't a DCC project when they did the first phase. But because it's beyond it, yeah. So, but there
So-
may be a mechanism, because we'd have to review that with the lawyer again, but there may be a mechanism specific to that frontage that's different than this frontage. It's less complicated, so.
So because it is now inside our DCC, we are on the hook for funding this entire road at some point in the next 20 years, basically?
Yeah.
And it's not gonna get cheaper.
But as you collect DCCs, you should hopefully have money to fund those, yeah.
Yeah.
Feels like one of those grudge projects, like winter tires or something.
It
You don't want to
does.
spend the
It
money,
does.
but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been seconded.
Yeah, so I'm gonna call for all in favor.
I'm a very grudging,
I don't think any of us are loving this particular expenditure, given the state of our roads inside the village.
yeah, we're gonna hear about
Yeah.
why are we paving this and why aren't we paving these?
Yeah,
We're-
because
we're-
these are not DCC projects,
Yeah,
and we
we're
don't have any money to pave
We're
those.
definitely gonna hear.
We'll just
yeah.
preempt that answer
Yeah, well-
now. And any opposed? Thank you. Okay, conference attendance, thanks, Rob. Conference attendance 2024.
Gross. Moving on.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Brown. This is an annual report that we just bring so council has a chance to discuss what conferences and conventions each of you would like to attend in 2024 and strategize a little bit. So there's enough budget for each of you to attend AVICC and UBCM. Each of you also has an extra $1,000 to attend more local events. And once during the term, you have the opportunity to attend FCM or FCM Sustainable Communities. In the report, you'll see we've tried to gather up all the information of what's upcoming in 2024. Not every event that council members have attended in the past is offered every year, so there's an opportunity for you to look and see what interests you in the report. And also in the report, there's a general estimated cost of each event. It really depends on where these conferences are held. Hotel costs are very expensive right now, of course, you know, and if you wanted to attend something in lieu of attending AVICC or UBCM, you have that option as well, if something interests you. There's no resolution or asked other than just to receive this report. It's just an opportunity for you to discuss it.
Thank you. Questions? Anybody?
Just one, what is the, what's the LGLA forum in February 2024 in Richmond?
I actually pulled that up. LGLA is more of an educational.
Yeah, well, I found that one extremely valuable, when we, as a new counselor, when I went to it, I found that, the
I-
LGLA one, very good.
I think there's a different theme for every leadership forum. This one is called Empowering Communities, Leading Change Together, and it's about fostering meaningful relationships with communities to drive collective change. And to strengthen citizen engagement, foster inclusive decision-making, and build resilient and sustainable local communities. So I think Mayor Brown may have attended LGLA, and maybe Councillor Kettler, perhaps? Maybe can
Previously, yeah.
talk about your experiences with that.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's similar to the newly electeds forum, a series of sessions, and yeah,
Yeah, it felt like new guy boot camp.
totally.
At the first ones.
Yeah,
It
it'll be good
was-
for you, for new counselors for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's when I'm
And you
interested,
can-
then I would have to.
There's also accreditation that comes with that. You can get accredited for
Yeah, to
attending the
track your-
courses, and you could actually get certified as elected official with this training. So, yeah.
See,
So we're uncertified elected
Fly at her,
Rookies.
the seat of our pants.
Yeah, and yeah, Vancouver Island Economic Alliance, we missed this year because we did budget instead.
had our own economic alliance.
Yes. And the Climate Leadership Institute's really good too. I think both Jesse and I have done that one too. So I don't have necessarily a question about attendance, although, you know, I like to go to all the things, if they're useful. But I want to go back to our policy because I struggle with this every time I look at it, and I wonder if we have a set budget for conferences and seminars, why would we tell counselors that they are only allowed to attend one FCM or FCM sustainable cities during their term? Why would we why would we limit council's learning? Why don't we just have a set amount of funds, and when you allocate your funds to things you'd like to learn about, rather than,
Like that's what Rachel was just mentioning with the option, that if you didn't want to go to AVICC, you could use that money towards something else. Is that,
right, but that means you have to give up AVICC
yeah.
in order to, and if you've been to FCM already, then you're not allowed to go again. I don't understand that logic.
Well, unless we save up,
'Cause it's so
unless
much
we
money.
forgo,
Right, but if we
UVCM,
have this
that's-
set of money
that
and
time.
we're spending within our budget, why would it matter? That's my question.
I think the policy is intended to guide council towards particular events, for sure. AVICC and UBCM are pretty traditional
Yeah.
events. And to set the scope within the limit of our budget. And that's how the budget is based, basically, on attending those. And and that's how we calculate that budget. But you could go to others if they're, I think, as long as they're municipally focused and there's no abuse of that, you could look towards that. But I think this is sort of intended to steer you towards AVICC and
Yeah.
UBCM. And
Yeah, and I
UCM.
think that's totally appropriate. I think that's where we should be. That's our primary, advocacy places and also learning places. And maybe it's moot because you'd never have enough money to do more than one, but it just bothers me that we would say, what if there was a counselor that just wanted to do FCM? Like every year, they just are really focused on nationwide issues, and we're like, sorry, you can't because we have this policy. Like, it just, yeah.
Can I just speak up? So it's council's wish, of course, and a policy usually guides. So if you guys felt it was okay if one councillor just went to a nationwide, because that's really all the budget would allow.
Yeah.
But I think it's in order to ensure that actually doesn't happen. I think, right? Like I'm thinking you wouldn't want somebody getting to choose to just go to that and then and then you lose out on them maybe helping you with advocacy at UBCM, or like if they were to, that might be what the policy is. I wasn't here when it was, well, I think I was here. Obviously, I've been here a long time, but I don't think I was involved in the policy, but I'm thinking that that might be the thinking, right? When councils wish,
I think
like
it was
put
more
wishes
so
down in.
like at a national scale, what would we be doing every year at a national scale? So I think the conversation was more like to get the experience to a councillor nationally once during their term. I think that's where we were going with that.
Okay.
Like every year, I don't know, I don't personally find a need for one of us to be represented at a national scale personally, but that's just my feeling. Financially, I don't agree with that.
Well, it's not a financial decision because we have a budget, and if you're inside the
Right, well,
budget,
that's why
so
we
it's more
decided
about
that
allocating our
most of the time
interests
during
or
the term is
focus.
we allow for that extra expense of the FCM. That's what, like, if we had that every year.
And it's more equitable, right? If you had one person always going to the other side of the country and nobody else going. I don't know.
that was just an example to kind of illustrate how we're influencing what we're supposed to be participating in. And we don't generally do that in other ways, so.
Can the person come to council with a request to vary the policy if they wish to attend 2 conferences at FCM in a row or something?
I think under the policy under section 2, it does say that you can forgo UBCM or equivalent dollar amount, and you could go to FCM in lieu of attendance at UBCM. It's just the restriction of the budget.
Yeah, so then that's my question too. So say you've done AVACC and now you want to go to FCM, but you don't have, there's not enough money in the budget. But it's, the policy says you get to go once a term and you decide you want to go.
We set aside enough for one member to go every year to
Okay.
FCM. So we pull that out of the budget. So there's about
Right, and then if that's not used, it
Yeah.
just goes back. Okay.
So I think it's really just about budget constraints, really, is what
Yeah,
the
so
policy
that's
is all
why
about.
I'm
and
wondering,
then-
why do we have this whole policy about you may do this and you
Well,
may
just-
not do this? Why don't we just give
Just
people
to
a
help
budget?
with
Yeah.
it, because that's kind of where your budget, and yeah, and really, but it does give you a mechanism, like, so if there is budget left over and because somebody's not going to anything or whatever's going on, then you guys can, I'm assuming, make a motion.
And I think that's why they have
That's
this
probably what it
discussion,
would be.
because if no one wants to go to UBCM one year and no one's able to go, then there's extra funding. You could reallocate that and say, well, someone could go to SCM.
Yeah,
Or something else. Or 2 people could go to LGMA
yeah.
if 2 of you aren't able to go to UBCM. And have this discussion here at the table
To sort
figure
that
that
okay.
out.
Councillor
Couple-
Tyrion?
Couple just quick questions. Does the budget roll over? It's a yearly budget.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so I was unable to go to AVIC this year, but I can't roll that over to an LGLA next spring.
No, that's, our budget works that funds go through the surplus reserve policy, any unexpended funds in the year.
Okay, fair enough. And my next question was, were we close to the budget? We all just attended, well, 3 of us attended UBCM. Were we, is the budget amount actually good for?
We have been under the last few years, mainly because Councillor Kettler expenses have been covered by the CBRD as board
Yes.
chair.
Okay, and then we were under again because Neil was unable to come to UBCM.
Yes.
And Councillor Kettler was sick as well.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I guess coming up, I probably wouldn't attend the full 4 days of a UBCM.
Yeah.
You know, I would probably limit it.
But is $3,400 a reasonable budget for one person? Did that number come in close?
Yes, it did. And that was Vancouver, and it's in Vancouver again this year.
Yeah, okay,
Very much depends on the host city
yeah.
and the current rates of that.
And AVICC is
Victoria
Victoria
this
this year, so that's
So it's a
gonna be
little
more
bit
expensive.
more than Nanaimo. It was Nanaimo, which was
Yeah.
very affordable this year.
So then would there be room for new counselors to do UBCM and AVICC and LGLA?
LGLA's in Richmond, that'll be expensive.
If no one decides to go to FCM, there would be room for one member to go to LGLA,
Only one.
because they're equivalent cost. FCM is very equivalent, it depends on the city, of course, but it's fairly equivalent to attending LGLA in Richmond. So it's just fitting within and it's oftentimes it's really guessing, because a lot of it depends on where you stay, your accommodation, how you travel, if you travel together or you travel separately. It's often hard to predict and
Yeah,
budget
for
what
sure.
the costs are going to be.
Okay, and then that brings up, so is there flexibility if two counselors decide that this is the year for FCM? Can two counselors go in that same year, or is it, is because the budget doesn't roll over, it's only one counselor at a time?
If council was happy with two of you going,
I mean, it does
I
stay
wouldn't
within
tell
our
you no.
terms, So we would have to make.
and you'd have to find the funding through not attending another conference.
And probably make a motion, right? To go outside. Yeah.
Right, but you're saying you wouldn't be able to do UBCM and AVICC as well. Yeah, that seems just not okay to me.
And we have been increasing the budget, but just hotel costs have just increased so
Yeah,
much.
they're ridiculous.
So it's really
It
challenging.
really does add up, like $32,000, and that's all you get. Like, that's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really,
Do we want to look at the policy again at some point and see if there's a way to
To rework it?
rework it a little bit with a term because our budget cycle is yearly, it's hard to do
Yeah.
it as a term budget or.
Yeah, maybe that's the shift. Yeah, I feel like what we would want, what the community would want is the most knowledgeable council they can get. So, and these experiences are key, like learning opportunities. So the more, particularly new counselors are able to do that, the better they'll be at counseling.
Governing.
Governing, thank you. Because we're not counselors, not in that way, different kind of counsel.
I think it's flexible enough that we can make a motion if we want to in a year. If two people want to go to FCM or whatever, we still have that flexibility to make a motion, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to relook at the policy to make it to figure out some way to do it over a term. Because we never know when the opportunities are going to come up. Well, I don't know when we find out when the opportunities are going to come up. And whether that's, in order to make those decisions about what you want to.
It was a bit of a struggle to find this information about what's
Yeah.
coming up, because organizations often don't post ahead of time, and we had to make quite a few phone calls
And
to
certainly
ask.
not years ahead. So we wouldn't know what's coming next year. So we can't make that decision until we see, yeah.
So here's a question: is it possible to make it into a reserve that it rolls over if you don't use your full allocation that year? Or is that just too much of it doesn't work in the
I mean,
financial world?
it's possible, but we don't carry forward operating budgets for
Right.
for the work that it causes.
But
So
it-
we tell everybody else that we don't
What
do
if you
it.
call it something like mental capital or something?
My mental
Intellectual capital. I realize operating budgets don't roll over. So.
I mean, you guys do have like a little bit of, 1 year host amenity if you wanted to add another,
Something on a particular year.
throughout
Yeah.
the year or whatever. Like, you can make a motion and add budget at that point if it was.
Okay. So if some fantastic
That's
new.
Yeah. I
Opportunity.
mean,
Opportunity
we
came
always
next
leave
year
about
in the-
$20,000 in your host amenity for that.
Okay. So do you want us to be giving you preferences now?
It's helpful for staff to have an idea of.
Yeah.
Because we reserve hotel rooms sometimes almost a year in advance, so who's interested in going to UBCM and AVICC? AVICC is coming up in February, I believe, so some of these are coming up fairly quickly, so it's just a good idea for us to
Yeah.
know what to prepare for. And if anyone knows that they won't be going to UBCM at this time, I mean, that can change, but then it gives you a chance to talk about, you know,
Where the money can go.
alternatives.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't,
for sure.
And we can bring this back to committee of the whole, maybe
Yeah.
at the end of
Yeah,
November, if you guys seem a little unsure and time to think about that, and it's a long time to schedule ahead, I know, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see the AVICC one here. I think it's in April this
April.
year.
It's
Yeah.
April, yeah.
And UBCM's usually in
Mid-April.
September, is it? Okay. So,
April,
And
yeah,
UBCM
September.
is early September, mid-September, sorry.
Yeah, you might want to bring this to a committee of the whole and give yourselves a chance to think about it.
You want more time?
yes, please.
Yeah? Okay. Let's bring her back.
Okay.
So, thank you.
I'll move receipt of the conference attendance 2024 report.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Do you need a
Thank you.
referral to committee of the whole?
If you'd like to give me one.
I'll move that we refer conference attendance 2024 to committee of the whole.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, council member appointments.
So it's again the time of year to make a handful of appointments this year, not as many as your inaugural year, but appointments required at this point are acting mayor through the year, and appointments to the Comox Valley Regional District Board, and we also, council also talked about appointing an alternate to MIABC, the Municipal Insurance Association of BC, for the UBCM AGM. And just to keep in the back of your mind that the library board does require an annual appointment as well, but you can't make that one until your first meeting in November. So that will come back to you on November 14th. But just to keep that in your back of your mind when you're going through these appointments. So Mayor Brown has consulted with members of council, made some recommendations for council to consider here. Acting mayors, Mayor Brown asked that you discuss that at the meeting tonight and decide whether you'd like to go what council typically has done and have a rotating acting mayor, or your procedure bylaw does say that you can have an acting mayor for the whole year, one acting mayor for the whole year, and that hasn't been used since my time working for the village, but it is an option. Comox Valley Regional District, the practice is for the village to appoint a director, a primary director, to sit on the CVRD board and the Recreation Commission, and the alternate director would be the primary representative on the Regional Hospital District Board and the Waste Management Board. The term of office for those appointments, if there's no set term, the terms would end on November 30th in the year of the election, so you wouldn't have to reappoint again until after the election, if council wished. Another appointment is the CVRD Parks and Trails Committee, but if there's no changes, there's no need to appoint those. It's Councillor Brown and Councillor Terrian as alternate are currently appointed to that committee. And I think that's it. There's also in the report all your current appointments that don't require reconsideration, unless council would like to look at those.
Okay, so should we try and do acting mayor first?
I'll take the first shift.
November to January?
Unless anyone.
Does
Take
anybody
anything else but the summer. I've been the summer for like a long time, so I'd like to switch it up.
So so there's May to July or August to October. And there's not many meetings in August. So do you want August to October?
Sure.
Or you could do February to April, I suppose.
Does anybody care?
Then you're way away from summer.
Yes.
Yes?
It's opposite. It's February.
February to April for Councillor Sullivan, November to January for Councillor Barecki,
I was happy with the August to October.
August, October for the ribs.
Only
Really?
only if you promise
For
to
the
be away
ribs?
for Rib Fest.
Yeah, I will try and go somewhere.
Wait a second.
Okay, so that's August to October, so May to July, Councillor Kettler?
Winner.
Last.
Excellent.
I'm
Thank you
happy
for
to
your
switch if you
flexibility.
prefer. I'm just as good with May to July.
Doesn't matter.
No?
Nope.
Okay. If you're happy, I'm happy. Good.
Okay.
Oh, does this mean, yeah, so I'm done as of tonight, basically.
Yes. Yes. Tomorrow, technically.
Tomorrow, technically, yeah.
So behave yourself tomorrow.
Just in time for
Just in
Cumberland
case.
riot.
For the Cumberland.
Right? Everybody wants to be part of that. Okay, so there's a recommendation there. If we are ready?
For the acting mayors?
Do you want to keep going through that list?
Yeah, well, the whole thing is there, but yeah, if you have questions about the rest of them. It's just the regional district and the MIABC.
Who's the alternates for
I'm,
you guys each other's alternates?
yeah, we're each other's alternates,
Yeah,
I
we-
believe.
Yeah, so typically that's how the appointments worked. But if we needed a third alternate, we could add a third alternate.
You can add a third alternate
Yeah.
to be just an alternate, or you can, if you can also do it on shorter notice. I think we've done that before, where both directors weren't able to come and council appointed it
Just ask
an
somebody else.
intermediate alternate.
Right.
But you could do that now,
Okay.
of course, as well. Appoint a second alternate.
Too short notice.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't know. Just wanted to put it out there in case anybody was really wanting that.
Can I ask about the term length? Because the last appointment, myself and Councillor Sullivan, was just a year to the regional district, and just wondering why the proposal for a 3-year.
So last term, it was a 4-year appointment?
No, it's never been more
Just
than
been
2.
one every year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Our first term in 2014 was every 2 years. Councillor Kettler and I came in, asked first year to request it to 1 year. That was denied and remained 2 years. And now I think we
And then it
reduced
was just year to year. yeah.
last
so
term
it's the CVRD's request for 4 years.
I think it's set out in I believe it's the Local Government Act, that it's 4 years unless
Unless you
council
shorten
appoints
it.
otherwise.
Right.
And that does sound right, that council used to do 2 years.
It was just
Yes.
2 years.
Yeah.
And
We
then last
appointed.
term, I think we made it to 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's council's discretion.
Doesn't matter to me whether it's 1 or 3. I don't
Well,
think
after
2
2
makes sense.
years, is there an interest from Councillor Tarian that he would switch roles?
Yes, I'm happy for a 1, 2, 3-year commitment on this. I'm in this for the full year, for
The full 4?
for 3 more years, so what I'm doing for those 3 years is whatever we need. Yeah.
So maybe we should just make it for a year and see how that goes.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm happy to keep it as a 1-year term, and you guys can make sure I'm doing a bang-up job and reappoint me then.
So what does the recommendation say? So we just have to add that term length?
It would be for a term ending,
October 31st?
yeah, for a 1-year term. I
We could
think
just
that
say
would probably
1-year
be
term?
easiest to do, just a 1-year
Okay.
term.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
For a 1-year
Uh,
term, effective November 7th
Okay,
of this year.
got it?
Got it.
Okay.
I'll move that council appoint acting mayors for the time periods below. November 2023 to January 2024, Neil Barecki. February to April 2024, Jesse Kettler.
That's me.
Oh, is that you?
Yeah.
Sorry. Fix that. February to April 2024, Sean Sullivan. May to July 2024, Jesse Kettler. August to October 2024, Troy Tarian. That council appoint Mayor Brown as director and Councillor Tarian as alternate director to the Comox Valley Regional District Board, with Mayor Brown as primary representative on the Comox Valley Recreation Commission, and Councillor Tarian as primary representative on the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Board and Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board for a term of 1 year to November 7th,
Beginning November 7th.
beginning November 7th.
Yeah. Then there's one more there.
Oh, and that council appoint Councillor Barecki as alternate delegate to the Municipal Insurance Association of BC Annual General Meeting.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Sullivan, and all in favor?
There we go.
And that's passed as well. Okay. Advisory Planning Commission Amendment Bylaw.
I'll move the council adopt the Advisory Planning Commission Amendment Bylaw number 1199.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And no new business, so upcoming meetings, please check the website to ensure that they are actually happening at the time that they're happening. There is an Advisory Planning Commission meeting scheduled for November 9th at 4 p.m. And on to question period.
Just, if I may.
Sorry, yes.
I will be away on the November 14th meeting, where the library board is going to come up.
Oh,
If somebody would like to take that one on, as I'm taking on these other roles, I would be happy
I
if
think
somebody did.
I'm your alternate on that, I believe.
You are my alternate currently.
swap it.
Because of these changes, of course, I'm needing to take on other work, which requires me to work full-time during the day. So I think I will have a hard time meeting some of my obligations that we have under the other committees, like the coalition and homelessness and affordable housing and social planning. But because the library board is on weekends,
Saturday mornings.
Oh.
I could take on the library board because that wouldn't be conflicting with my other work.
Okay, so so we'll have that conversation on the 14th?
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you about if I can help out with some of those other ones
Okay.
between here and there.
I'll see what I can do. But I also work during the day.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any questions?
Sorry, thank you.
Any questions for question period? I mean, from not us,
Not
not
from
questions
us.
for us, from us. From anybody else? I forgot to post the meeting on Facebook bulletin board this time because I was at a funeral. So, nobody's watching
No question.
There are some people watching. it
and
looks
nobody's
like.
asking questions. Okay. Okay, so somebody want to move us into closed?
I'll move that council close the meeting to the public pursuant to Section 90 of the Community Charter to consider personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for position as an officer, employer, agent to the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. Also, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. And also G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And
Thank